I did my independent project on The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner. The Sound and the Fury outlines the tragedy of the Compson family through the eyes of the three sons, Benji, Quentin, and Jason, along with an unknown narrator in the third person. All three brothers are affected by their sister Caddy in different ways as she grows up and becomes more promiscuous. Each narrator provides more insight into how the Compsons crumble apart as time wears on and how they fail to maintain their honor and dignity. William Faulkner was born in 1897 in Mississippi. He originally wanted to be a poet, but then decided to focus on short stories and novels. He tried to publish what he considered his best story yet, called Flags in the Dust, but the publishers didn't like it and edited it heavily. After this, Faulkner decided to write what he wanted to write and not worry about publishers. He finished his first draft of The Sound and the Fury and told his publisher, and I quote, "Read this, bud. It's a real son of a bitch. This one's the greatest I'll ever write." I think Benji Compson is a Christ figure. At the beginning of the book, he is 33 years old. He is also completely innocent, and like Christ, he exists outside of time. Benji has severe mental retardation and has no concept of time, and so he just is. Benji also is castrated for a crime he didn't commit, just as Christ is crucified for a crime he didn't commit. Benji is also last seen in the company of Jason and Luster, a black servant, who are both thieves in different ways. One thing I found interesting was that Quentin and Jason also have Christ figure qualities. Quentin is good with children, as a lost girl follows him around for a whole afternoon because she trusts him completely, even though they've never met before. Quentin also has a communion scene where he literally breaks bread shortly before he is arrested and sent to a magistrate. Jason has the initials JC, and on Easter Sunday saves Benji from pure terror and confusion, so as a form of redemption. I think Faulkner was trying to make a sort of social statement when he made these characters. Benji, who I believe to be the Christ figure, is misunderstood and ignored by society. Quentin, who has a Christ-like qualities, and Jason, who also has similar qualities, both lead horribly miserable lives. And so I think Faulkner is trying to say that either society doesn't recognize Christ, or that not even Christ can save society. And like how Foster said everything was political, I think this book was meant to make a statement about the South and its decay. I think the Compsons represent the old pre-Civil War South and its values such as honor, virginity, and religion. Just as the Compsons decay, so does all of the South's remaining honor and dignity, because now the South means Bojangles and camo. Faulkner focuses on characterization and point of view. The plot of The Sound and the Fury, while interesting and important, mainly serves to further the character development. Understanding the characters is what makes reading this book possible and enjoyable. Faulkner opens up with a narration from Benji Compson. Benji flows through time, recounting different events in his life through images and sounds. He is innocent and naive, and feels deep sorrow and loss when he thinks of Caddy. Quentin is neurotic, obsessive-compulsive, and haunted by time. His narration offers more insight into the South's values and morals as he struggles to cope with Caddy and her promiscuous behavior. Jason is bitter and angry at Caddy and blames her for all of his problems. These 3 points of view offer insight into the personalities of the other characters. As the book goes on, more and more is revealed about each character, and Caddy, who doesn't have a chance to speak, becomes the most important and well-developed character in my opinion, even though we only hear about her from 3 unreliable narrators and an unknown third-person narrator. I would give this book a 10 on the readability scale. It is the hardest book I've ever read, mainly because of the first 2 chapters. Benji and Quentin's sections both use the stream of consciousness technique, and so they basically just ramble on continuously with no real direction. Benji has some form of special needs and absolutely no concept of time. His narration randomly fluctuates between the past and the present, depending on what he sees, hears, feels, or smells. Quentin's section is also difficult because of how convoluted his thoughts get. There are pages and pages of run-on sentences with no punctuation. The rest of the book isn't as difficult to read, but it's still a challenge. There's one incident when 2 characters have the same name until one name is changed, and another incident where 2 characters have the same name even though only one is alive at the time, and none of this is actually clearly explained. I give this book a 9 or a 10 on the literary scale. There's a lot to Fosterize that I didn't get into, such as several vampire figures, biblical allusions, and references and symbolism. There is heavily religious deeper meanings, and most of the book takes place on Easter weekend and deals with the idea of redemption and resurrection. This is hands down my favorite book, period, and I do recommend it. However, this is a book that you have to want to read and want to understand. The first sections are almost painful at times until you get used to the style and realize that William Faulkner is a complete genius. I think the best way to read it is to reread it, and only then can you start to understand what's going on. So if you want to do this book for the independent project, I would just be ready to read it several times through. And then you'll probably love it forever and ever, and it'll be great. Thanks for watching.